Every 5 years or so, the genre of hip-hop experiences a new trend or wave that sweeps through the industry quickly and in mass amounts. From the SoundCloud era centered around lean perks and getting lit that we still see pieces of left today, to the drill wave that Chief Keef infamously pioneered early in the 2010s that actually remains in larger fashion, we see different waves of sound, style, and content matter splash with influence within the genre all the time. Up to this very moment in time, however, I don't think I've found any scene as unorthodox and polarizing as the newest one to enter hip-hop, the vamp scene. As you might have heard me mention in my Sofego essay video a few weeks back, which I recommend you watch before this one if you want even deeper context and info about the vamp culture, Playboi Carti released a classic album at the very end of 2020 with the powerful, influential, and groundbreaking Whole Lotta Red. Whole Lotta Red was Carti going all the way with the style he slowly began to introduce with his early work, with insane instrumentals, dark aesthetics to match the extremely distinct style choices he makes fashion-wise, and crazy sound effects with his voice that often just sound like him yelling in an abstract yet melodic way. With this project, Carti created an entire new wave that would take over quicker than expected, especially being as abstract as it is. Let's get into the origins of the vamp scene and Carti's relatively new label, Opium. Founded in 2019, Playboi Carti's Opium has become home to artists who seem to have extreme similarities to Carti's futuristic beat selections and distinct melodic flows. And before we even get into some of the artists on the label that are slowly starting to pop off, let's hone in for a second and provide detail for the sound I speak of a little bit more. In 2016, Carti would appear on A$AP Mob's Cozy Tapes Volume 1 before signing to the A$AP imprint OG in the same year. It wouldn't be until a year later when we would get a full taste of Carti's arsenal, or at least the arsenal he came into the industry with. When I first heard Carti's music on Self-Titled in 2017, with hits like Magnolia and I Woke Up Like This with Uzi, I became somewhat a fan of Carti's work. The classic Pierre-born instrumentals, alongside Carti's ability to effortlessly flow on them, made for a fantastic combination to just vibe to, even if you weren't so much a fan of music devoid of substance or concept. It wouldn't be until Die Lit, where he steered away from the lighter style he'd approached Self-Titled with, when we would get a strong feel for the rage culture Carti would soon begin to create. With a punk rock inspired cover and more punk centered themes, the album felt a bit more focused and cohesive, whereas Self-Titled was just a collection of fun records. While Die Lit is the same essentially, you could see Carti trying to be a bit more edgy and carefree on the project, channeling a punk version of himself throughout the album. While many fans enjoy Self-Titled more, Die Lit was an advancement of the unorthodox style he pioneered with producers like Pierre. An even bigger advancement and step down the carefree lane Carti created would take place with the aforementioned Whole Lotta Red, which leads us to today. About 2 years removed from Whole Lotta Red, take a quick look around the industry at its influence. In 2022, we saw the rise of Yeat, an artist who, while he does have his own unique twist on it, is clearly strongly influenced by Carti. Yeat's vocal inflections, flows, and oftentimes instrumentals mirror Carti's at times, even if you can tell the difference usually due to a difference in rap voice. Yeat quickly became a star and would be looked at by the general public as the biggest branch from the Carti-influenced tree. A branch of that same tree that should have and could have been the same size is Sofego. Many fans, due to his obvious beat selection being influenced by and his aesthetic being extremely parallel to Carti, expected Fego to sign to Carti's Opium label before ultimately signing to Travis Scott and releasing an album that underwhelmed underground fans everywhere. Many say that not signing with Opium was a grave mistake for Fego, and I think that opinion has a lot to do with the effect Carti and Vamp fans have had on artists who are currently on the Opium roster. Namely, an artist who had a feature on Fego's recent project Pink Hearts, Ken Carson. Ken Carson was the first signee to Carti's label, and it would quickly become evident as to why. Carson was granted a production credit on Whole Lotta Red and may have been a key pillar in helping Carti create the sound fans have come to know and love from the project. Ken Carson, a 20-year-old Atlanta rap rock star, initially signed to 808 Mafia in 2015. By around 2017 to 2018, Carson will begin releasing music to SoundCloud before being recognized by underground hip-hop fans everywhere and eventually Carti himself. Carti would go on to sign Ken in 2019, and since then, we've gotten 2 official label releases from Ken in Project X and his debut studio album, X. X, released in 2022, made an appearance on the Billboard Top 200, which is huge for an underground artist like himself. Albeit with the help of a major label and Interscope, Carti's fan base is so dedicated that they have, in turn, been supporting his artist heavily in his absence, to a point where they have become opium dick riders, not just Carti ones. Ken's aesthetic, whether it really originated by him or Carti himself, is extremely similar to Playboi Carti's, often rocking all black and vampire-like punk-inspired clothing and often posting mysterious pics to display it. Essentially, while I feel I can tell the difference and see where he differs and has his own style, Ken is the first artist to be considered a full-on Carti clone by the general public. Similar beat choices, vamp lyrics, and even fashion aesthetic as Carti's Whole Lotta Red run. Later on in 2022, we would get what would be the first offering with the Opium imprint by an artist named Destroy Lonely, with his major label debut in No Stylist. Not only did Lonely's project happen to chart too, but it even cracked the top 100 of the Billboard chart top 200, landing at 91. For this to be his first release on the label and to amass the fan base he has already, largely due to Carti's influence, it's super telling as to what the Opium fans gravitate towards and shamelessly will support to the absolute fullest. Destroy Lonely signed to Carti in early 2021 after Carti noticed Lone's semi-hit record Bane in late 2020. From the jump, you could hear heavy Carti influence within his work, but I would say that while he has too come to be considered a Carti clone to some people, Lone has shown potential to become a little more atmospheric, digestible, and at the end of the day, possibly mainstream. This could explain Lonely's quick rise and shooting past Ken in terms of the underground scene. The ability to switch it up, even if just a little bit, will determine how long this wave and scene lasts, which is what I'd like to elaborate on next. As I mentioned earlier in the video, waves come and go in hip-hop. Opium has the underground scene by its throat right now, and while they show no plans to let go, how far will Carti's sound and aesthetic take them? Carti has interestingly put together a label of artists that all appeal to a super specific fan base, and it has been executed to perfection thus far, as Carti stans have come to be huge Ken and Lonely stans as well. However, in terms of how far the label really takes the vamp culture, the big question lies here. Do Ken and Lonely even want to be mainstream artists? If the answer is yes, they have a great opportunity ahead of them to do so, as the more they rise, being the newest sound and wave, they will get to work more with the likes of acts like Metro Boomin, who was rumored to be working with the two in late 2022. I am so interested to hear how they both sound working with more mainstream acts. Carti, if you pay attention, hasn't really worked with anyone mainstream as of late himself, aside from his many infamous appearances on Ye's Donda in 2021 and appearing on Trippie Redd's Mr. Rage classic record the same year. It seems as if Carti, Ken, Lonely, and even Homicide Gang, who is the latest act on Opium to release a project, all have been content up to this point with keeping things niche. The question this brings is not only will they ever try to make something more universal while still keeping it vampy, of course, but is it possible that this complete vamp aesthetic could splash into the mainstream without changing? Like, do they even have to change their sound? My initial reaction would be yes, the Opium crew can blast off more and more the less unorthodox and the more universal their music becomes. But with Carti's Whole Lotta Red going #1 and selling over 100,000 copies first week, it's hard to doubt the takeover of the vamp scene at this particular point in time. 2023 will tell us a lot about the future of Opium. Not only will Carti release a highly anticipated follow-up to Whole Lotta Red, but this could be a year we see either Ken or Lonely establish themselves as household names. While I feel Lonely, to me, has the most potential and the biggest buzz at this point in time, Ken has just as much of a chance as him to break through this year with his druggy, atmospheric vamp tunes. I don't know if there's a crew I'm more interested in hip-hop entering the new year. That'll wrap up today's essay, folks. Opium fans, if you want more of this in the future, let me know in the comments. I do look forward to covering these talented gentlemen into the future. Subscribe and like the video below. Make sure you turn on post notifications as we drop almost daily, and follow us on our Instagram, which should lie in the description below. That's all I got for you boys today. Doses.